everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Injustice for All with Judge Joe Brown. And I'm tired of trying to remember the episode number. So I think this is episode 22 or 23. How are you, Judge?
23 and 24. But anyway, I'm doing fine.
Urban League declares a state of emergency for civil rights in the U.S. in response to Trump. One of the nation's oldest civil rights organization, the Urban League, on Thursdays declared a state of emergency for anti-discrimination policies, personnel freedoms, and Black economic advancement in response to Donald Trump's upending of civil rights presidents and federal agencies traditionally tasked with enforcing them. So the National Urban League annual State of Black America report accuses the federal government of being increasingly determined to sacrifice its founding principles and threatening to impose a uniform education system and a homogenous workforce that sidelines anyone who doesn't fit a narrow exclusionary mold.
Well, my dog just gave editorial comment. He did. Considering the disgustingly deplorable state of American education, the rampant ignorance, stupidity, and the wrong-headedness that we have, the fact that the Urban League hasn't done a damn thing to advance anybody's cause except that of the few people that are employed, and spending grant money that could be invested more profitably elsewhere for the last 60 years. I'd say no. Next thing is I totally disagree with the positions that they have been taking for the last couple of decades, and in particular this one. And a lot of Black Americans are supporting MAGA because it offers an alternative to the sissification of the country through the rainbow cult, which isn't just trying to push gay. I don't even think that's their objective. They're just trying to push a way of life that is an anathema to the needs of the Black community, brown community, white community, yellow and red communities of this country, and everybody in between, with a whole bunch of shake them up and let's do a smorgasbord or buffet of different colors all wrapped up into one and put up on the counter that you can select from. So, no, to hell with them.
So it says the report is to be released Thursday at the group's conference in Cleveland, Ohio, my neck of the woods. Criticized the administration for downsizing federal agencies and programs that enforce civil rights policies. The authors aim to highlight what they saw as a multi-year coordinated effort by conservative legal activists, lawmakers, and media personalities to undermine civil rights policies and create a political landscape that will enable a hard right agenda on a range of social and economic policies. So, quote, "It is not random. It is well-funded, well-organized, well-orchestrated movement of many, many years," says Mark Morale, who is president of the Urban League. For a long time, people saw white supremacist politics and white nationalism as on the fringe of American politics. It has now become the mainstream of the American right. Those central foundations is within the Republican Party. The report directly critiques Project 25, a sweeping blueprint for conservative governance coordinated by the Heritage Foundation think tank. Here's my question, Judge. Mark Morale, who is president of Urban League, and all of the things that he is complaining about the Trump administration, saying how much harm is going to be doing to Black America, the same state that Black America is in today, about 6 months into his presidency, is the same state Black America has been in the last 4 years under a different Democrat administration.
It's improved. I've noticed the prices have gone down places.
What's improved under Trump?
Yeah, under Trump, it's improved. And the problem is that over the last 25, 30 years, Black folk have taken control of most of the urban areas in the country, large urban areas, or they have had a very high level of influence that they have acquired, and they've just screwed it up. What has happened is instead of doing something for the people that they claim they are interested in, they have used the opportunity to put themselves in positions where they can steal, embezzle, misappropriate, or generally show rampant incompetence. And that's bad. So a lot of America is becoming conservative because they are beginning to find out that once they start examining the rhetoric, what you're really talking about is, do you want sick boys in girls' bathrooms and wearing panties and bras and competing against the girls, and freak shows trying to corrupt the children and rainbow them 5 days a week for the whole school year for kindergarten through 12th grade? And people don't want that. They're looking at this thing of emasculation that's occurring across the country, and it's negatively impacting black men. Too many youth of all ethnic persuasions no longer know what hard work is, enterprise, and think they are entitled to be given something as though they're still infants occupying a crib from cradle all the way to grave. There's a lot of sickness here, and it's time to get people away from feeling entitled and back into being inspired to work hard and achieve, and look at the obstacles to that as adversity, which can be overcome, and when overcome, show accomplishment. So it's time to get back, man up, and pick it up, move up, and stop lamenting those who have a good place on the plantation and want to keep it. So, again, this is just one of these things. What's this woman that's the mayor that's been spending thousands of dollars of tax money on getting her due done and thinks she's some kind of privileged character? What's the clown down in Georgia that got removed from the judgeship due to incompetence that was thinking she was entitled to rip it off? What's Fonnie Willis down here in Georgia doing about stealing from the public and misappropriating funds and mismanagement of the criminal justice system in Atlanta? What is this we find all across the country, where we've got people like the Los Angeles mayor, who seems to act like she is a Che Guevara fan and communist, and advocates disobedience of the federal law. The disobedience thereof is negatively impacting a lot of the people who are rightful citizens of the city that she's supposed to be mayor for. What is all of this? And see, we look at these things and people say, oh, that's enough. Now that we are paying attention to it, this is too much. This has got to go. And yet you have the Urban League, which has become a creature of these miscreants. We also have the NAACP, not totally. There are a few good chapters, one of which I'll name specifically is in the Long Beach area of Los Angeles. But there are just travesties that, as per the topic of our thing, injustice, manifest a lot of it for the people. So it's time to understand that white people looked at highwaymen, robbers, thieves, murderers who were also white. Chinese looked at people who were doing these things who were also yellow. Native Americans understood criminality, and some of their own kind were outlawed. Well, black people need to understand that there are black criminals too who prey on them, and it's time to turn them out. That long speech aside, they're full of crap.
So it goes on to say here, the Urban League report condemns major corporation, universities, and top law firms for reversing their diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, the DEI, right? It also criticizes social media companies like Meta and X for purported censorship of Black activists and creatives and content moderation policies that allegedly enable extremists to spread radical views.
I couldn't even get a blue check for 5 years from Twitter until Musk took over. Now I have a blue check because it is me. So they have no business talking about censorship on X. It was so badly censored, limited it to that sissified, effeminate, emasculating, sick socialist garbage that permeated Twitter for so long that it just boggles the mind to listen to such a stupid statement coming from what used to be a dignified organization. The problem is now that they no longer protect that kind of garbage, and they have opened it up so it's not perfect because there's still remaining algorithms. There's still clowns in the bureaucracy who don't want everything heard. But it is so much better than it used to be that if, well, let's just take what I used to charge the jury. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you found that a witness has lied or told a mistruth or attempted to mislead you in one instance, you may infer that they are attempting to do that in all instances. So here you go loop-de-loop. It's obvious if anybody posts on X, including a lot of blacks and other minorities, that for most of the last decade, it has been very restrictive and it limits what you can say to a certain far left point of view. Now that they've opened it up, people are remarking on it, though it's not perfect. So if you find that the representation contained in that assertion about X is invalid, then you may infer that everything that this organization or these individuals are talking about is just as invalid. Nah.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because the report goes on to criticize Trump administration's effort to shutter the education department, denounces changes to programs meant to support communities of color at the Department of Commerce, Health and Human Services, and Housing and Urban Development, among others. The transformation of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division was singled out as an existential threat to civil rights enforcement. Say that?
Existential.
Yeah, existential.
Existential. In other words, it's like one of these fundamental aspects of life they're trying to alter.
And it says that the Urban League and other civil rights groups have sued the Trump administration since January. Liberal legal groups and Democratic lawmakers similarly sued over parts of the administration's agenda. But guess what? Those lawsuits were for the migrants.
Yeah, I know that. Isn't that interesting? They are trying to protect a group that's coming in to basically destroy, undermine, and sabotage the interest of the people that they look like and are supposed to have historically represented. Seems like they've been co-opted.
Right. And so here's what I'm trying to understand with this article. They're saying that the Trump administration is doing all of these horrible things to Black people, but they could never list, well, this is the public policy and this is the law and this is the actual agenda that they passed that's going to harm Black people. They can never be specific as to what his administration passed that is going to harm us. Now, the guy who...
Can I say something very quickly? Mm-hmm. They are counting on the propaganda that they have assisted with over the last 50 years, making the people that they look like stupid, ignorant, and unable to discern reality. So they're counting on that, and they're pulling all of the strings and ringing the Pavlovian bells so that they get a response. And that's what they're trying to do. So I find it highly insulting. This is the same game that BLM was playing, and maybe BLM got it from them since the Urban League has been doing it for a lot more time. It is a project where you say, hey, look, you want to help yourself, contribute, or in this case, government, we help out black folk, colored folk, Negroes, whatever. Help them out. And when the money comes in, instead of it being spent on anything of utility to the group in question, these people get it and get to divvy it up for salaries or benefits and live off of it. And they're not doing anything. So turn them out. And as far as the entitlement bit is, it's like it's time for the community they represent to grow up and start doing it on their own so they become self sufficient and able to contribute so that they aren't worried about foolishly, we're going to separate and, somebody somewhere will come down and manna will rain from heaven or something and we will be able to live off of it.
I have a question to ask you. Do you think the Trump administration is good for Black Americans?
Yes, it is. It becomes something to give an equal opportunity to succeed to rather than being held down so you can be taken care of. And see, there are a lot of lies being told. One I wanted to point out from the other day, this thing about taking down Dr. King's statue. Well, what one of Trump's pet projects is to set up a statuary garden on the White House lawn so that you can have a lot of people recognized out there, and he wants to put King's statuary out amongst the assemblies. And I was at the White House in February for a reception they had for Black History Month, and it's very interesting the number of people that Trump says he intends to lionize by statuary recognition in this park he's going to create on the White House premises. So you hear somebody taking something out of context and telling you an outright lie about it. Trump is against black folk. He's going to take down Martin Luther King statue. Yeah, but he's already indicated to a lot of black folk he's going to put it out with a statue with Muhammad Ali, Jack Johnson, Thurgood Marshall, some other people out there. And Malcolm X, who has committed to putting up a statue of Malcolm X, for goodness sakes. But Trump did, so this is going to be part of this assemblage out on the White House property. Well, not the property, I guess it belongs to the people, so that's not really what it is, but the White House grounds.
Outside of statues, do you think that the Trump administration, his second time around, can benefit Black Americans?
They already are.
In what way?
They're getting rid of this nonsense that the Democrats have set up for 50 years to keep the black people dependent and childlike. That's a big step.
Which nonsense?
This entitlement, where everybody's supposed to give you stuff instead of you going out and earning it. See, this whole atmosphere. See, one time I played football. I've done some other competitive things too. And if you go into it with the right kind of attitude, you can achieve. If you go into it with the wrong mindset, you're going to lose. If you walk into a fight that you're getting ready to have on the playground, down the street from the playground, or behind the bar, and you think you're going to lose, you've already got your ass kicked. But if you go in there thinking, I'm going to kick some ass, then you can do that. Now, the problem is that for 50 years, minority communities, in particular the black one, have been bamboozled into thinking that they cannot achieve in the real world. So they have walked into the fight with the attitude of, I'm going to get my ass kicked, and the inevitable happens. And I think he's undoing that. And he's undoing it for the whole system and for the whole republic, because that kind of attitude under the rainbow cult has been spread for decades. And instead of can do, We can't do. Somebody is on us, so somebody protect us, and that kind of stuff doesn't work.
I want to play this. It says Black woman spends a week in jail due to HOA complaint about having brown grass. So let me play this clip.
Yeah. The brown grass.
Yep.
The grass isn't always green in Irina Green's yard, thanks to a big tree that you can see in this drone video, and a drought that led the county to impose watering restrictions last year didn't help.
Looks like you got some pieces of sod here.
Green says her yard is far from the worst in Riverview's Creekview subdivision.
If you drive around my neighborhood, you'll see there's plenty of yards that are not up to par.
But so far, she's the only homeowner to actually go to jail for failing to keep her yard up to her HOA standards. It all started with notices from the HOA's management company.
And it went from the grass being brown to, there's a dent in my garage.
Dents too small to see from the road.
That was a part of my court case.
Green was also cited for having a dirty mailbox covered in mildew due to shade and moisture from that same tree.
I would assume you could probably clean that whole mailbox in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
And for having a cargo van similar to other ones we observed in the neighborhood. The HOA filed a lawsuit against Green in Hillsborough County Court, demanding she correct the violations. She represented herself, preparing handwritten explanations that the HOA and judge rejected. Green appeared at a hearing last July in which the judge gave her an ultimatum.
My grass had to be...
Essentially, what happened is there was a civil action filed. She lost, and she was given an order by the court, which she apparently failed to comply with, thereby becoming contemptuous of the court's orders. So probably she got locked up for civil contempt. The way they cast this, if you were stupidly going to go for the headline and you don't know anything about law, you'll get the idea that something that cannot happen happened. They don't specify any crime that was committed. They should have started this off with a responsible journalistic presentation that said, woman defies order of court found in contempt and locked up pending compliance, something like that. And that makes the true sense of what happened go on. Now, these things happen. So the way the article starts off with gives a completely erroneous idea of what was happening. Even me, I said, okay, when is somebody going to tell us what the criminal statute is? And then I said, oh, the homeowners association took her to court. They've had a proceeding on this matter. An order has been issued, and then I extrapolated and said, okay, she failed to comply with the order and got held in civil contempt. That's what courts do when you don't comply with their orders. So,
Okay, so
no big deal. Just
she didn't go to prison because of brown grass. She went to jail because she did not comply with the summons.
Well, she showed up. She did one bad thing. Lawyers say that if you represent yourself, you've got either a fool for a client or a fool for a lawyer, and that's what she did. Next thing, we have the arrogance of misconception. They're picking on me. No, they took you to court. You had ample opportunity to present your side. You lost, and instead of complying with the court's orders, you decided to be defiant. So the court, representing the civil authority of the state, found, well, had you brought forth to show cause why you should not be held in contempt. And apparently what was going on is she could not show that, so they were giving her a deadline as to when she was going to comply with the court's orders. So she hasn't, she didn't, and that's what happened. So they should have started with that. Woman found in contempt of court for failing to comply order following from homeowners association legal action.
Right. And apparently this incident happened a year ago, and it says that her sister-in-law, who is a paralegal, filed the petition for an emergency hearing, and she said she appeared at her court hearing in July, where the judge gave her another court date for August of 2024 and was told to have the issues resolved by then. So
She didn't.
So here's the thing I want to ask you though, about the homeowners association. And the article was actually released today on the 17th of this year. So, right. And this incident took place last year, but I want to ask you, do you think that homeowners association has a history of being racist or discriminatory?
No, they don't. The homeowner, we don't even know if what the composition of the home, the residents are in the area.
They don't.
See, okay, one of the things that I get involved in is you've got in neighborhood, all right? I'm not saying it's happening in this one. Neighborhoods, okay, middle class, people are trying, people die because old age is what it is. And new tenants come in, or new residents come in, or somebody decides to say, I'm moving elsewhere and I'm going to rent this property out. So you start getting people that put their cars up on milk crates because they can't afford to get tires for the car, or people don't take the trash out, or they've got an old broke down sofa that they put at the curb and it looks horrible, and the neighborhood starts going down and the homeowners association starts trying to keep it up, or at least appearances up, to keep the property value up, to keep the quality of life up, and things go down. People start bringing in their nephews because one sibling says, I can't control that boy, you need to help me out. And they bring the nephew over, and the nephew brings his homies by, and they say, oh, look at all the nice places we can burglarize or terrorize and see what we can do, and neighborhoods go down. So there is this constant struggle to keep things up. And then in the cities, you find that, especially ones that are run by black folk, they seem singularly unable to control their crime problems, and the quality of life starts dropping overall. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but it sounds very much like that unfortunate situation that is so common today in the inner cities.
Right. All right. I have another case that I want to show you.
All right. So this is what I can do because the state is opposed to your application for deferred adjudication. I can reset this in a couple of weeks. You can bring whatever witnesses you want to bring. The state will give me his criminal history, and we can go from there. And then I'll make a decision on whether or not deferred or...
Do you want to do that, or do you want just probation from the bench today?
I just want probation. I want to get this over with now.
So here's the thing. People say they want to get things over with, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they don't think about the consequences of their actions. What I'm telling you is your attorney has applied for deferred adjudication. Not getting this over with right now, maybe I'll give you deferred adjudication and you won't have a felony conviction. But if you want to get this over right now, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to have a felony conviction, and that felony conviction is going to follow you wherever you go like a ball and chain. And it's going to affect your ability to get employment if that's what you're intending to do. But if you want to go for it, I'll go for it. You'll be found guilty and you'll receive your regular probation, and it's going to be a conviction on your record.
Which way do you want to go?
How old are you?
31, ma'am.
31. You don't need to look at your attorney to make a decision. Do you want to be a felon?
No, ma'am. I don't want. I'm a driver.
He's a truck driver, Your Honor, so it will affect his livelihood down the road. However, I told him that it may or may not, who knows, 6 years down the road under this administration, will there be truck drivers. But be that as it may, you have a choice today.
I just want to take the probation, ma'am.
We can go off the record. Do you understand what you're saying to me? You're saying to me that you want a felony conviction. And what I'm telling you is, according to your plea bargain agreement, if I give you a felony conviction and you mess up on it, you're looking at 10 years in the prison. If you end up with deferred adjudication, you don't have a felony conviction. And if you mess up on it, you're looking at 10 years prison. So you're telling the court that you want to take the easy way out and get a conviction on your record. So You can be the felon Wade. Is that what you want?
No, ma'am.
So why do you need to look at your attorney to make a determination on whether or not you want to come back in 2 weeks? Because maybe in 2 weeks, maybe I'll give you deferred adjudication. Maybe your attorney is going to present something to me that will tell me that you're deserving of deferred adjudication. Maybe the state is going to come back to me and say, this is the only thing he has. He doesn't have any other criminal history. So what do you want to do?
What should you do? Ma'am, I don't know the land of the law. I'm just here.
I'm going to help you out. We're coming back in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. I think of all the pathetic, weak Negroes, white folk, Hispanics, and other stuff. I didn't want to get it over with. Now you got a felony conviction, you damn fool. Why didn't you go to trial on this? Why didn't you take a stand on it? Why didn't you pursue your remedies? I just want to get it over with. I was scared. Well, you punked out. What do you want me to do about it at this late remove? I dealt with that so often. And then the context is the bigger context. We get to talking about the injustice, and that's the title of what we do, Injustice for All, the injustice of the criminal justice system and how it's so wrong against black folk or Negroes that people want to foolishly call themselves now. The problem is that 97+% of the people in the American penal system pled guilty. Just a little more than 2% got found guilty. So this overwhelming 9.7, 97 out of every 100 that are in the penitentiary put themselves there, not only by the initial conduct, but because they got scared or wanted to get it over with. And that's supposed to equate it to injustice. That's what I was talking about earlier when I started talking about mindset and how you look at stuff. That was so preposterous. I like what the judge did. I would have been a little bit more direct about it and said, no, the court's not taking any action today because it does not want to get into post-conviction relief at a later point, alleging ineffective assistance of counsel. Now, and I don't like the way this lawyer was talking either. Sometimes if you're a good lawyer, you sort of beat your client across the head. So what's the matter with you, fool? What are you trying to do? No, we're not going to do that. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. You aren't that damn lazy, and what you're doing isn't that important in the scheme of things. You got yourself a felony. You just entered a plea of guilty and accepted the charge. So that's not even the question. Now you want to talk about you went and behaved like a felon, did some wrong to general society. Somebody was a victim. And then you talk about you don't have 2 weeks to come back and see to it so maybe you can get your behind off of the fire. That is crazy.
I don't think his lawyer explained it to him. His option.
I don't know what the hell he did, but I did not like what I was hearing from the defense position. And it sounds like too much of what I've heard and seen and observed too often over the years. More and more now, somebody's got a slick ad campaign and people come to the individual and the individual has no damn experience in the practice of criminal law because they have never gone to or seldom gone to trial. That's like having a doctor who's holding himself out to be an adequate and competent physician, and you discover that that person has never been an intern or a resident in anybody's hospital. And that's what you're looking at. And they're judges, not like this one. She did what she had to do. She just said, no, we're not going to do it. So she could have said that on the front end. Sit on the bench a few more years, and she probably will go that way. So she did fine. But I don't like what I heard from the defense side. He may be something else may be going on. I don't know. But it stank to high heavens.
Yeah. Now, one last question I want to ask you on this. Do you feel sometimes it is important to have Black judges because she was clearly trying to.
It's not a Black judge thing. I've heard. Look, I will
Okay, so it
say
doesn't matter. Like some judges try to help you out, and
okay,
you're Mhm.
one of the best judges I ever ran into, and he became a friend. A tall white guy named Terry Lafferty. He was 6'5", and he had been a prosecutor for a long time. He was one of the fairest judges you've ever seen. And he said, "Oh no, we're not going there. This is an injustice." My suite mate, a guy named Jim Beasley, he's dead now. Died of brain cancer. He used to say, he used to be pretty rough. He said, "Oh no, we're not going to do that." He's a white guy, and an old white guy, epitomized the image people have of a badass Southern white guy. Judge William Williams had the nickname Slick Williams, which he got from the way he used to try cases. He'd say, with a frown on it, "We're not going to have that today. No way in hell is the court going to allow that. You are coming back, and you will contemplate over the next 2 weeks what the court might do to you, but you're not going to throw your life away and commit another felony against yourself." So, yeah, these things happened. So it's got nothing to do with black, white, brown, red, yellow, but then I can think of some of the worst travesties I've ever seen. A couple of black judges used to commit them all the time because they got appointed to a bench they knew nothing about. So rather than learning what the hell they were up to, they decided to jump everybody to camouflage their own ignorance and ineptitude. So I've seen injustices on both sides,
okay,
and some good doing.
right?
By the way, one other thing too. See, some of us are committed to this idea of justice, and it becomes a religion. You get all of these Bible thumping Christians, or these jihad demanding Muslims, or people who want to deal with Zionism and all sorts of crazy things in the name of organized religion. Well, there are other people who get secular and have just as great a passion about justice, fairness, equality under the law as they do, as others have about their religious beliefs. So it has nothing to do with what the defendant looks like. And by the way, justice is blind. You can't see them.
All right. Do you have time for one more? Because we haven't spoken about Fannie Willis in a minute.
Must we?
Kind of.
I'm waiting for indictments to be returned against her and Wade. And I'm waiting for the slack they're going to cut Wade in return for his testimony to start kicking in, so we can start getting a lot of people locked up for the conspiracy felonies that have apparently been committed.
We haven't spoken about Fannie Willis in a minute.
Must we?
Kind of.
I'm waiting for indictments to be returned against her and Wade. And I'm waiting for the slack they're going to cut Wade in return for his testimony to start kicking in, so we can start getting a lot of people locked up for the conspiracy felonies that have apparently been committed. What about the probate court judge in Georgia that just got snatched off the bench last year for incompetence when she started trying to put her little grubbies on the money she saw was there, and then got busted outside of a club for acting a fool to contribute to her woes? And what's that mayor that thinks she's all this, that, and the other? That's is it Illinois that is running through the public treasury?
Tiffany, the mayor Tiffany. Okay, you're talking about the judge out of Douglas County in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah, and what about
Tiffany Hayard? She was booted out. She was voted out.
yeah, that too. See, this kind of stuck on stupid or coonskin wig of Jasmine Crockett. You know, this kind of stupid stuck on.
It's like a reoccurring theme of a certain type of Black figure in a position of some type of power, but they're acting very ignorant and ghetto in their position.
That.
Okay. All right, let me play this about 4 minutes.
News investigation finds a Fulton County judge raising issues now about a plea deal for a repeat offender. Channel 2 investigative reporter Mark Winnie is live in downtown Atlanta. And Mark, the victim in this situation was visibly upset.
We sent documents and a link to a hearing to a former prosecutor to make sure we were getting it right. And he says clearly the judge is concerned and he understands why. But the DA, in an email, is telling her side.
Got DNA, cell phone records, and video footage.
They robbed me. They beat me up. They hit me with the gun. They stole my money. They took all the keys to my cars and stopped my business, for almost, 3 months. And I'm suffering from that. I'm not accepting it, Your Honor.
I'll note that if the district attorney is concerned, the bench here in Fulton County is soft on crime. This offer did not come from the bench.
A plea in front of Judge Scott McAfee in Fulton Superior Court by Robbie Lewis. Charge records indicate with a list of serious crimes. But Judge McAfee seemed to sort of communicate his own plea to understand why Lewis was getting the negotiated plea deal he did.
If the state could just walk me through the basis for the reduction. I mean, I'm familiar with the facts of this case, and I'm familiar with Mr. Lewis's history. I think this is the most serious case I've seen trial division have, maybe in the past year.
They hurt me so bad.
Chakram Moshiri Xavier said by phone he was pistol whipped, beaten, kidnapped, and driven around for about 45 minutes and robbed of $4,000 and the keys to dozens of cars after defendant Robbie Lewis and another man showed up at his Roswell car dealership in July 2024. We got pictures via text. In a negotiated plea for charges including robbery by intimidation, kidnapping, false imprisonment, aggravated assault, and more, Lewis got 10 years to serve in prison, plus 10 years probation, plus 5 years suspended, says former DeKalb DA Robert James, to whom we sent records we obtained and a link to the hearing. But he says because Lewis was a recidivist, a repeat offender, he could have gotten far more if he'd been convicted of armed robbery, which was reduced, and the other charges to which he pled guilty, and had the state not withdrawn its recidivist notice.
If the defendant had been convicted, he would have received a life without parole sentence.
An email from Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis said, in this case, the defendant was sentenced to 25 years to do 10 years. He will serve every day of 10 years in a Georgia penal facility because he pled guilty to kidnapping. It added, a judge is ultimately always responsible for sentencing. Clearly, Judge Scott McAfee thought the sentence was appropriate because he accepted the sentence and made no amendments as he has the legal authority to do. And it said, this resolution guarantees this defendant is out of our community for a minimum of a decade. If he violates the law in any way in the next 25 years, he will gain more time in custody.
If the offer's been conveyed and we're on the eve of trial, then at this point, probably Mr. Mitchell's relied on it, and we have to hold the state to that offer because the defendant would be prejudiced otherwise.
James says records we sent him showed the DA's office had already cut Lewis a break in another case, helping to get him out of prison early from a long drug sentence. James says he agrees with that move under the circumstances, but disagrees with giving Robbie Lewis even another break now.
The terms of the plea did not require him to say who the other guy was in the robbery, right?
Yeah, they didn't, and that's confounding. Right.
Now, the sentence was dated June 13th. A June 16th document and other information indicates the state moved to dismiss all pending counts against a co-defendant, citing evidentiary concerns, and the judge granted it. Robbie Lewis's attorney, Kenneth Mitchell, said he respects all parties involved. His heart goes out to the victim, and he advocated the best he could for his client, but he cannot speak to what went into the prosecution's thought process on the plea deal. Reporting live in downtown Atlanta, Mark.
Translation, this is another strike against Fannie Willis. Her incompetence is just extraordinary. See, there's supposed to be trust and accountability in the system on the professional side. Willis is an officer of Judge McAfee's court, and he's supposed to be able to rely absolutely upon her representations. She did not have the circumstances of this case, total circumstances, conveyed to the court. And that would be grounds for discipline. Judge McAfee, I have met him, talked to him at great length personally. He's young for his position, but he's an exception to the rule. He is zealous about acquiring all the information, knowledge, discernment, and acumen that are necessary to be a good judge. He's going to go far. And I think he needs to wind up on somebody's Supreme Court or in somebody's governor's seat or higher. And what is in place right about here is not necessarily in front of the cameras, but sending notice to the DA, counsel for the defendant, and having a meeting in chambers and chewing somebody's ass. And it would lapse into, how dare you send something up here with this kind of concealment of the totality of the circumstances, and having the court rely upon you as an officer of itself and being subjected to this kind of misleading nonsense. What is the matter with you? See, McAfee is a damn fine judge, and Willis is just an incompetent knucklehead sitting up there trying to pull all of the cliche strings to be in the position she's in. And she's also illustrative, allegedly, of some of the bad things today, which is, how do you expect the crooks to be held to the law when the people that are supposed to be in charge of the whole thing don't hold themselves to the law? Now, she's been seen hugging up on, hobnobbing with a certain OG criminal element, allegedly, in the Atlanta area. And I suspect this may have something to do with it, where somebody was being done a favor, because there's no way somebody like this should get away with this kind of situation. This should be going to trial, not that nonsense she wasted so much time on over the last few years of going after the School Teachers Association, a rap group for organized crime, or the President of the United States for organized crime, some absolutely ridiculous cases. This is the kind she should have been spending her time on. This is the kind of thing she's in office to prevent, this kind of endemic, rampant criminality.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, thank you guys for tuning in to another great episode of Injustice for All with Judge Joe Brown. Please make sure you like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Let me say one more thing. There's more to this than comes out. This kind of situation, when you get into the background of stuff like that and what's implied by what I just saw, is absolutely revolting. This is the worst of the worst, and is indicative of a complete, horrible breakdown in the system. It embodies all of the injustices that even the most zealous critics of the system could possibly bring to bear, because they aren't even obvious to anyone who's not sophisticated and experienced enough to get it. This is absolutely horrible, and it bespeaks the injustice in the system that needs to be wiped out.